We'll be discussing about how we improved conversions with a simple UX intervention for GSheets integration on Appsmith. And we have Rohan and Parth who will be walking us through this process. We'll wait for a couple of minutes for folks to join in. Feel free to say hi in the chat. Meanwhile, Rohan and Parth, it would be awesome if you could introduce yourself for the community.
Sure. Hi folks. My name is Parth. I'm a product designer with Appsmith, and my area of focus is building developer experiences within the product. I've been with Appsmith for over 1.5 years now. Um, I actually started my career as a software engineer and then slowly moved and transitioned into the field of design. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to join Appsmith as an organization, because my experience working as a software engineer in the past, collaborating with what I've learned being a designer, puts me in a great position to build developer experiences for a product like Appsmith. Um, I it was a slow transition for me, and one of the reasons I moved from software engineering into product design or design as a field was I realized sometime down my career that I loved solving problems, and I felt the whole field of design was basically built to cater to that one core thing that I love doing, and that's how I turned into a designer and then joined Absolute on the project.
Awesome.
Over
Cool.
to you, Rohan.
Super excited to have you, Parth. Yeah, Rohan?
Firstly, thanks, Vihat. Very happy to be here. I'm an engineering manager here at Appsmith. I joined about a year and a half ago. I, in fact, joined as a product manager and then after some time made the transition into my current role. It's one of the cool things at Appsmith. Um, One is, although we are a startup, we have a lot of standards and practices in place. But although we have standards and practices in place, we also have a lot of flexibility for each of us to find work in whatever is the most meaningful way and the most life affirming way. So yeah, that's my story here. But before this, most of my career I've been a software engineer at a company that is kind of the opposite of a startup, um, which has been around for 35, 40 years.
Awesome. Awesome. Super excited to have you as well, Rohan. Before we get started, I'm just curious. You have worked as a project manager at Appsmith, and now you have transitioned as an engineering manager. Could you, give us some context around these two roles?
Yeah, it's a bit of a bouncer of a question and could
Mm-hmm.
start off a Twitter war.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll tread carefully, but
Mm-hmm.
I think the gist of it is the ratio of responsibility
Mm-hmm.
kind of varies along the spectrum from one team to the other, and
Mm-hmm.
indeed from one company to the other.
Mm-hmm.
But to highly oversimplify it, a product manager is more bothered about what we're building, and the engineering manager is more bothered about how. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not where the boundaries end. Everyone collaborates, and in our team, everyone helps each other make the best
Mm-hmm.
decisions.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Rohan. So where are you folks joining from?
Um, I'm joining from Bangalore.
Mm-hmm.
Same, same. I'm in Bangalore, in fact.
Awesome. I'm based out of South India. I'm joining from Hyderabad. So folks in the chat, feel free to drop in where you're joining from. Awesome. We'll get started. We'll deep dive into our super interesting topic, and I'm super excited because this is the first time we have an engineering manager and product designer for our community calls at Appsmith. So super curious to learn a lot of stuff with you guys. Awesome. So how did you first discover the problem with Google Sheets data source conversions? Can you walk us through the process of how you have researched it?
Sure. A little bit of background. Here at Appsmith, we work in something we call as pods. A pod is a team, a smaller team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We work in pods because it gives us laser sharp focus. So each pod is focused on a very small part of the product and the code base. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the rituals we follow for each pod is a monthly product catch up. And this was the
Mm-hmm.
work of the integrations pod. So in our product
Okay.
catch up, the entire pod gets to see some product metrics, um, gets to ask questions, things they're curious about, what they want to deep dive into, find areas of uh, friction, create hypotheses, etc. So a lot of projects have actually spawned from this monthly ritual. So
Mhm.
one such monthly ritual, I think back in September or October of last
Mhm.
year,
Mhm.
we were looking at the user journey. So if you imagine a new user joining Appsmith, they would sign up and then they play around with mock data sources. Then they
Correct.
create their own data source, and then we hope they create their own query and execute the query successfully, and etc. etc. There's the journey is much longer after that. The part that the
Mhm.
integration pod is interested in is just this subset: creation of own
Mhm.
data source, creation of query, and execution of query. Um, for these numbers, we were seeing that the conversion in the third step was very low for Google Sheets, which was
Mhm.
surprising because Google Sheets is supposed to be easy to work with.
Right. Right.
And that's where we discovered that there's a problem. And then, the team kind of got together and we double clicked into stuff. I think Parth can tell us more about what we did when we knew that there was a problem area.
Yeah. Thanks, Rohan, for setting up the context. Just building on what Rohan said, once we identified the low numbers in one part of the funnel,
Mhm.
what seemed troubling the most was the fact that Google's source, out of all 22 integrations that we have within Appsmith, is the most easiest to connect with. And the amount of effort and projects that we've done to simplify the whole process of being able to connect to a Google Sheet data source and query them to get your results out uh, did not reflect the number that we saw through those funnels, right? And we just wanted to take a deeper dive into understanding what exactly was causing the problem. And so we identified where the gap was, right? And now we wanted to understand why that gap existed. And to do that, the entire pod got together, including developers, designers, product managers, and everyone. And we looked at qualitative data to begin with to understand where all were these drop offs and what were the numbers that we were seeing through different actions within this experience. And based on that, we started doing some qualitative research in terms of observing users, uh, particularly new users coming to Appsmith, and observing them how they were interacting with Google Sheets and basically where they were getting into trouble, what were the issues, what are the points of frustration within this experience. And based on that, we started building out certain hypotheses that what could be the cause of these problems that we saw, which was leading to the numbers in those funnels. And from then onward, we started experimenting on each of these hypotheses and validating them forward.
Understood. Got it. But given some metrics and feedback from the community, Google Sheets has been one of our favorite data source integration, and we have not seen any complaints saying, that this query is working or this data source is authorized. It's all, is it all the numbers that you are tracking? And on based on that, you wanted to improve the experience, right?
Yeah. So the thing is, what we have noticed is if there's something that is obviously not working, like a bug,
Mm-hmm.
something is broken, then our
Mm-hmm.
community is absolutely kind enough to come and tell us, and that stream of information actually helps us make the product better.
Mm-hmm.
But there is another part which is core to the developer experience, which are
Mm-hmm.
small annoyances like this, where the
Mm-hmm.
experience is kind of broken, but a user may as well learn how to live with them. So this is an example of a developer experience where there was an annoying thing happening, which probably nobody would complain about.
Um,
Understood.
just
Yeah, Parth, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just adding to what Rohan said, I think there's a belief that for every one user who reports something, there are 10 who silently go away, right? And Google Sheet is more targeted to people for trial users, like people who are exploring the platform to come in and get a sense of how to build internal tools and how friendly
Mm-hmm.
AppSmith is, right? And in most cases, you'll see experienced people and people who've been with the platform for long reporting all these things. But it's just not that, right? We're building a platform for even people who just want to get into this idea of building internal tools. And those are the
Mhm.
people who would rather leave the platform and explore something else rather than report it. And it was
Mhm.
very critical for us to actually have a laser focus and work on improving that experience as well. Just because somebody is not saying it doesn't mean that we don't have a flaw or we don't have a gap.
Correct. Correct. So you guys have been already working on different projects. So Rohan, you have worked on GraphQL, while looking at this problem. Parth has been doing some other crazy features. How did you tackle this? Is this something that came in between during your catch up, and how did you start prioritizing this, and how did you start addressing this problem?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So that's the magic of the monthly ritual. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if this project idea is coming from one direction, then there would have been a lot of um, effort that had to be spent in getting everyone to buy into this and everything. But
Mm-hmm.
this was a problem that the entire pod sought together come alive in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
and the entire pod also formed hypotheses for what could be causing the problem. So
Mm-hmm.
the alignment was magical. We didn't have to think that, oh, we have this other thing, should we do it, etc. This we knew what needed to be done. I think after that things just kind of the path became clear for the entire pod.
Got it. Parth, what was running in your mind when you first came across this, conversion problem, and how did you tackle it?
I'm not gonna lie. My first thought was, how did we miss something like this?
Got it.
But not dwelling on the past though. But one thing I love about Appsmith is it's not always that we want to build fancy features, right? We also are very involved in improving the existing experiences, and we believe that over time, something that we built a couple of years down the line might be uh, something which has changed, right? The environment in which it was built 2 years back might not be the same environment that we live in right now, and we need to constantly keep a check on these and keep improving our existing features while building new features as well. So it's not either or, but it's a combination of both and a trade-off amongst them that we need to be mindful of.
Awesome. Cool. So now I'm super excited to see what these changes are. So if either of you could share your screen and show the changes, that would be super awesome.
Sure, I'll take this up. And let me know once my screen is visible. Okay,
Yeah.
folks. All right. So I'll just start with some context. So within
Mm-hmm.
Appsmith, you are able to connect in 22 different data sources to query data and use it within your application that you're building, right?
Mm-hmm.
So early on, when we were developing this product, we were highly focused on native data sources like you have Postgres, MySQL, and other data sources like SaaS integrations, including Google Sheets, Airtable, and these were not part of the roadmap at that point, right? So a very core difference between native data sources and these SaaS products is the way that you make this connection, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
in this case, as you see, if I'm trying to connect to a Postgres data source, I need to manually enter some of these fields and input values so that I'm able to allow Appsmith to build a connection with where my data resides, right? So in
Mm-hmm.
this case, let's say I'm creating a dummy data source and have entered some values which are not correct, right? And I click on test, and as you can see, the test has failed, right? So there was no connection that AppSmith could establish with the data provider, and
Right.
I'm still able to save this data source. So now one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons we did that was because we believe that at a point when somebody is trying to connect to a data source or build a data source within AppSmith, uh, they might not have all the information handy at the same amount of time, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we don't want them to lose the progress. So we allowed users to save the data source even without having tested the connection. Like I could come back after a couple of days once I figure out what my right database name is or what my correct host address should be, and then I can save it and run the application. And
Right.
within this, what end up happening is that even though my data source is not connected, I
Mm-hmm.
can still write queries on top. Now, as you know that
Mhm.
when I'm trying to build a query on top, it's an effort. It takes a lot of effort to build the right query, right? I'll go through a couple of trials and errors, and I would be able to finally figure out what my query syntax or the structure has to be. And now when I
Mhm.
go into running the query, we end up getting a failure
Error.
because the
Correct.
query which is being built on top of the data source, that is only not connected, and which was a
Mhm.
point of frustration in this case, right?
Right.
Now, coming to coming to Google Sheets for that matter, right? Now, the same experience was propagated when we introduced Google Sheets as a data source as well, right? So now, as you can see, I have an unauthorized data source, right? And out here, what we wanted to do was we wanted a clear call out to tell the user that okay, your data source that you are in, the state of the data source is unauthorized. And
Mhm.
this was the first step in having a very clear communication between the platform and the user as to the state of your data sources. So unlike Postgres, within Google Sheets, we have this ability to determine if the data source is authorized or not authorized, and we wanted to
Mhm.
convey that message clearly to our users as well. The second
Mhm.
intervention that we ended up doing was the fact that if I'm going to build, let's say, a query on top of an unauthorized data source. So eventually, when I run the query, I will end up in a state where I get an error. So what we did was we started with a small experiment to see that what if we blocked the users from getting or building a query on top of an unauthorized data source to reduce
Right.
the further frustration that will come down the line in the same experience, right? And have them focus on what is broken and what needs to be fixed, right? So that was the second intervention that we did. So we did two things.
Mhm.
One was have a very clear communication between the user and the platform as to what is the state of your data source. And if your data source is in a bad state, we will not allow you to build a query on top. So we would ask you to first correct or correctly give the authorization to the data source. And once you've done that, you'll be able to build queries. So even after putting a number of effort into building a query and then getting into an error state, you'd have a higher chances of successfully being able to run the query uh, on the data sources.
Got it.
Just to give an example, first of all, building queries on Google Sheet data source is extremely easy. So we've done a lot of effort in simplifying the process and how you query
Mhm.
data from Google Sheet. So it's basically a form which takes you one step at a time and makes you select some things. And this is just a small fetch query which will give you some information about different Pokemons I have in that sheet, right? And
Mhm.
just because this process is so simple, uh, the only problem that could have gotten in getting the right data back was when your data source was not authorized. So we just put a blocker out there. So we introduced small friction where if you have an unauthorized data source or you have a data source in bad state, you first we'd ask you to fix that before you start building a query on top of
Understood. Got it. Thanks, Parth. This is super awesome. I can now assume the work you have done is like helping users to, actually connect to the Google Sheets integration and also to, run queries successfully. So I have a couple of questions. So the first one is this the first iteration that you were able to get to? Like, I'm sure that you must have started working on Figma and then, start adding the small developer experience elements and then, iterate on it. So is this like your first iteration, or did you try and experiment different ways to improve this developer experience?
a lot of thought went into how to address this problem that we found out. And
Mm-hmm.
so this project was something that we thought of as an experiment. So
Mm-hmm.
the underlying problem, as you see, expands into every data source that we have right now, right? But
Mm-hmm.
for this case, we wanted to see if we introduce these interventions, does it help in increasing the number of people who could successfully run a query on a data source, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if that experiment would have been successful, which it is right now, hence Rohan and I are here, we would propagate these changes to the other data sources as well. So
Mm-hmm.
this was more of an experiment that we were running and trying different things to see what was working. And
Mhm.
unlike any other feature that we are developing, a lot of issues that we found were in the core user flow rather
Mhm.
than having to redesign certain pages of the platform, right? So these were interventions that we did on a very on a level of improving the flow of how the user goes from having or the thought of connecting to data, Google Sheet data sources, and being able to query the data from those sheets itself. But yeah, a lot of thought went into this, and like I said, it was a completely collaborative effort. So we've had developers, designers, product managers all on the call trying to iterate and see what would be the possible solutions to the problems that we've explored.
Understood. Got it. Thanks, Parth. But I think you've also answered my second question. So which is, like, are we, expecting the same for the other data sources integration to have the same developer experience? But I think you have answered that as well. All right. Let's move on to the next one. So what were some of the challenges that you have faced, while implementing this new DX?
Yeah. Um, Same thing. I think Parth kind of touched on it. Consistency was a um, big debate when we were
Mm-hmm.
discussing this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I I really enjoy the debates that we get into in our pod, and
Mm-hmm.
that has helped us make some great decisions. So in this case, the concern was, hey, we're doing this special thing for Google Sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Will it not look inconsistent to the user because they're seeing something on Google Sheets but not on the other data sources? But
Mm-hmm.
like Parth said, the thing that helped us to decide in favor of doing this
Mm-hmm.
was that it's an experiment. It's we've picked one integration and formed a hypothesis. Let's run this experiment and see if it's if the results are favorable. Then we can kind of do the other integrations. And looks like it bore out. Um, and I'm also proud that the team made the right decision there.
Awesome. So can you share some of the data metrics that demonstrate that this change has impacted your conversion or improved your conversion? So, how are you tracking after this, upgrade has been implemented?
Right. So if you remember the journey, the first step was creating your own data source,
Mm-hmm.
then creating your own query out of it, and finally successfully executing. So the percentage of people who are doing the step three
Mm-hmm.
um, compared to the step one, we saw a jump of over a month. We saw a jump of 15% over there.
Mm-hmm.
This comes with a caveat, which was expected, that the
Mm-hmm.
first number, the number of people who are creating their data source would go down, which is natural. And it did. It
Got it.
went down fractionally, like marginally, but the outcome was the people who did create their GSheets data source, 15% more of them were able to successfully execute the query as well.
Got it. So Parth, you are just following the numbers on, the dashboards are like, were you tracking in a different way?
Um, Not really. So we knew that the change that we've introduced will take some time, and we'll need to look at the numbers after a period of time to see if that actual change has happened or not, and is it going in the direction that we intended to. Um, but even before we could, I could go to Rohan and ask that, what was the impact of this. Rohan was extremely proactive in actually keeping a check on have the decisions that we've taken in the past panned out or not. And I think within a month, Rohan had posted a message on Slack that one of the projects that we did and has an impact of increasing the conversion by 15%. And
Right.
we're hoping that over a period of time, this would still keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
And based on this, now we can also relook at the other data sources that we have and use this findings from this project into those.
Understood. So you can actually skip this answer, but have you actually started working for the other data sources, or are you still looking for more results?
Um, okay, I wouldn't want to deep dive into too much of specifics, but I think we are in a good state right now to
Mm-hmm.
understand that the decisions that we took for Google Sheets have actually worked for us,
Mm-hmm.
and we would be implementing the changes that we did and using the findings from this particular project to definitely
Mm-hmm.
improve experiences across all other data sources that we have integrations with.
Got it. Awesome. So my next question is, in your opinion, what does user experience play in improving conversions, and how can product managers, designs, engineers can come together and optimize this?
Um, in my opinion, I think so. The first thing to increase the conversion is to build a feature or a product which our users
Mm-hmm.
love, and that responsibility does not only reside to one function of the team. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's when all the functions coming together, including product, design, and tech, and working hand in hand, you're able to build a product that would actually help the users and that the users will actually love, right? So I would say it's not only the designer's responsibility to improve the UX. It's bringing a different lens from all these functions to look at a problem or to look at feature that we're trying to build and bring in those valuable information so that we are better able to as a team make the right decisions and move forward. um, but I I would still say that the idea that I love within Appsmith is that instead of just building a one-off solution, we always end up looking at a holistic solution to build, right? So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just that we're trying to solve a very small problem in a very tiny part of the product. We always look at how can we improve this across the platform. Like it's not just that we want to introduce something for a very small subset, but we try to look at holistically how the changes or the decisions we take is going to affect the entire product and build solutions that enhances.
Got it. So are there any other trends or developments in this, tech with respect to the UX space that you find particularly interesting?
Um, I don't know how far this future is, but I always believed that. So the idea that a platform like no code or low code platforms exist is because we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to help users build their applications faster, right? And with low code and no code tools, we've been able to exactly do that. Like the
Mm-hmm.
if you look at 10 years ago when you wanted to build an internal tool, it would have taken you months to build a complex product. Even
Right.
like not having a fancy UI because it's not customer facing, will still have taken you like months to build that application. And with products like Appsmith, you can do it within weeks or even days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending upon the
Mm-hmm.
complex things that you're building. But what I feel is that I think technology will take it a step further where we'll be able to build smart and intelligent platforms that not just understands what the user is doing, but can also predict the right next 2-3 steps in that process. And
Mm-hmm.
not and with that prediction, we'll be able to help those users uh, structure what they're working right now so that it is compatible with the next things they will do. So again, reducing the time that 10 years ago would have taken you 3 months to a week from now, we could go
Got it.
further by building internal tools could be an hours, few hours worth of work. And you're there. Like you have a need, you build a tool within a couple of hours and you just go forward.
Got it.
I mean,
Very, very
it's already a
insightful.
dream, right? And but my answer, I guess, would be something generative AI, something. But that's just kind of a cop out. I really loved the answer that Parth gave. It's already a dream that you can build a CRUD app on AppSmith in seconds,
Mhm.
uh, which just a few years ago was impossible.
Right. Yeah, I still remember the days where I've learned like React for literally 2, 3 weeks and banged my face for building a CRUD app. But But yeah, it's super awesome to see that these tools are like helping us all out. Cool. So Rohan, my next question is for you. As we have talked before, you said this is something that you want to improve on. I mean, you are already working on a bunch of features, but after you made this change, how did you start communicating the numbers and metrics, with the stakeholders in our organization?
Hmm. Yeah, this is a good question, especially since I did not do well to do too well in this aspect. So what I
Mm-hmm.
did was I made reminders for myself, to every week go and check the numbers and when
Mm-hmm.
make sure it's the trend is going up. And when
Mm-hmm.
it was a month passed, and I had enough confidence that about the direction of the outcome, I shared this number with the rest of the pod. Everyone, of course, has access to the dashboard, but I it was my job kind of to keep track of it. So I shared with the pod, and everyone was obviously happy and excited that they, you know, uh, our hypothesis, our experiment worked. Um, but what I failed to do, and this is something that I found out in the retrospective that we did later, which is again a great practice that we do as a pod, is that I
Mm-hmm.
got feedback that I should have shared this update with the rest of the company as well, and not just the pod, because there are stakeholders and colleagues, everything
Right.
outside of this pod. And then yeah, it was easy for me. I just shared this on the Slack channel, the general forum, and of course everyone was happy and curious about how we did it, what we do, what was our learnings, all of that. Yeah, and
Right.
so that's
Even
my yeah. Sorry.
yeah, I was saying even I remember that celebration because even I was a part of it, and I'm super excited to actually take this to the community.
Right. Yeah, this video is happening, I guess, literally because of that Slack post.
Yeah, awesome, cool. So looking back, is there anything that you wanted to do differently in terms of implementing this change? So what are your thoughts? Did you resonate anything on this?
Uh, I think one thing that I take from this experience was we need to increase the velocity to find these gaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see and work with the pod. How can we be very proactive in terms of identifying these gaps? Because we know that once we identify it, we would quickly go and try to see what can we do to improve those gaps or fill in those gaps. But
Mm-hmm.
still, the way that we are able to identify that, I'd love to see if we can increase the velocity of it. And
Got it.
so that's something that I would change or do better. And one of the core learnings that we found from this particular project was even during solution exploration, right, where a designer is working headlessly to see what is the right path for the solution, how do we design the experience, and etc. Uh, we found that a lot of good nuggets of information came from developers and product managers as well. So one thing that I
Mm-hmm.
kind of take from this project is to always involve devs and product managers during any part of design. If it's not if they don't have any input, they can obviously not contribute. But just because they are there, it obviously sparks up interesting conversations and different discussions, which ends up leading to getting a better exposure and more knowledge about what how to look at the same problem or the solution through different lenses, and that gives us better way to design or create the solution forward.
Got it. So Rohan, what are your takeaways from this?
Um, yeah, this firstly, this
So.
was a good story, and
Mhm.
that's why we're talking about it. But at the end of it, um, a lot of experimentation, and the result of the experiment may not be favorable to the hypothesis, which is also good news,
Mhm.
because that should be taken as a learning and then form a new hypothesis and new experiment.
Mhm.
And underlying all this, I think the a healthy habit for the team is to have a highly focused set of metrics. And when I say metrics, I mean both product and engineering metrics. We haven't touched
Mhm.
on engineering metrics at all. I can talk for hours on this. Uh,
Mhm.
but to have a very narrow focus on the metrics that matter to a team, and to iterate on them, uh, because in the end that's the most reliable measure of how successful a team is.
Mhm. Understood. Got it. Folks, I'm pretty sure that many of the people from the community who are listening to this, want to come work with Appsmith, because of the work we have done. So, for them, maybe could you tell us about what is it like to work with Appsmith?
If I have to summarize in a phrase, then I'd say always exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So just a small thing about me. Appsmith is one of the longest time period that I've stayed with the company for, and I've always worked with product companies, and I think somewhere between 9 months, 10 months to year and a half, I always find
Mm-hmm.
that there's no more learning. The excitement of building something new or something challenging goes away, and I might not be uplifting my knowledge or my skills with that company, and I end up shifting, right? But with
Mm-hmm.
Appsmith, I've never had a dull day in my life. There's always a
Mm-hmm.
new challenge. There's always something that pushes me to come out of my comfort zone and learn things, get myself acquainted to different scenarios, and keep like with every project that I've worked with within Appsmith, I've always found myself growing in that sense. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always been a bliss working at Appsmith, and it's very interesting to see what every exciting thing that is coming forward and what's planned for the near future.
Got it.
Um,
Rohan, so what is it like for you working in at Appsmith?
Well, like I said, this is the first startup that I'm working at. So I came in expecting some culture shock, thinking that
Mm-hmm.
it'll be tough for me to make the transition. But
Mm-hmm.
surprisingly, it wasn't, and it wasn't for really great reasons. Like I said, at AppSmith, um, our teams have a lot of really great practices and standards,
Mm-hmm.
um, which not only like draw boundaries into what we should be doing, but also
Mm-hmm.
are liberating in a sense. So we don't have to keep thinking about smaller things where we can focus on the real problem. So that really was liberating and exciting. The the people here are fantastic. The problem we we're solving is really massive. I love that we are remote, so that that means our team is really diverse. We have people from around the world, different time zones, different countries and cultures. Overall, I love working at AppSmith. Yeah, if you're watching this and you'd like to join, please check out our careers page. Be happy to talk to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rohan. So, folks in the chat, in case if you have any questions, feel free to drop it on our chat, and we'll be answering them. All right, folks, I have one last question for you. We have all been in this open source space for so long, and if you go to our issues page, you'll see like three basic templates, which is raise a feature request, raise a bug report, or raise a feature upgrade, something like that. But do you think it is also necessary for users to share this developer experience problem? Say if something can be improved, because this is not like a standard templatized thing, meaning everyone has their own perspective in terms of developer experience. Some people might like going in one flow, and some people might start liking in a different one. So do you feel it is important to express the way we start using a product?
that's a great question. So I'd say that, see, we're building a product for our users, right? Now, if you find
Hmm.
something annoying within the product, you should reach out to us from any of our different channels of communications. And trust me, there's always somebody from Appsmith listening. So if you've raised a problem, and if you've raised a problem, we will either address it or we'll take it into consideration moving forward, right? So it's not that you'd be banging your head against a wall and there's nothing happening. We're always active and we're very keen to see how our actual users are feeling about the product. And at the end of the day, we want to build a product for our users, right? And their inputs and their experiences are something which are very critical, and we value that a lot. So just reach out to us, and for sure you'll be heard, and your problems would be addressed.
And for
Awesome.
some
Thanks.
added magic, what really is exciting for us, I think Vihar also knows this very well, is that it's not just um, some user coming to Discord and saying, "Hey, I'm having this problem," and then somebody from Appsmith helping them. We are seeing more and more that users are helping each other, and
Right.
the community is just is beautiful. It's one of the main reasons that we wake up every morning excited and we go to work.
Awesome. Thanks for that, folks. So what are the current projects that you are working on, and when can we chat next with the community? Any sneak peek over that?
uh, Top secret? No, it's not top secret. We are making some more improvements on Google Sheets,
Hmm.
which should be that's in the works.
Hmm.
um, we're also working on Oracle integration. We know that it's an important database
Right.
which
Mhm.
a kind of company is interested in. So that's so keep your eyes open for that one. That should also be coming out soon.
Awesome. Parth, anything from your end?
I think we're working on one of the most requested features from our users itself. So
Mhm.
I think the largest amount of requests we got from users was having the ability to set environments within apps with applications. And
Mhm.
like I said earlier, right, there's always somebody at apps with listening to you. And this is a clear example. Like this was the most requested feature, and we started building on it. And you soon should be able to see that you'll be able to create environments within Appsmith, and that should actually simplify building applications within Appsmith even further.
Awesome. Can't wait to try them all. All right. That's all for the session, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Parth, for joining us. I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, yeah,
Thanks
for
a lot.
having
This was
us.
fun.
Bye, bye everyone.